again, Mr. Secretary, and I appreciate all the time you're spending with us today. I'm going to be a little bit redundant, but I want to talk about a couple more programs. Trade is also important to my state, so I think we appreciate your emphasis on that. We hate to have a blueberry challenge here, but we do actually have the best tasting blueberries in the country. Our wild blueberry crop is about 100 million pounds a year, and trade with China is important to us. So we commend our colleagues to try our blueberries someday. But it's also one of the ways that between our fishing industry and our agriculture industry, we care deeply about trade. Mr. Young mentioned in this same conversation about opening more markets, and trade was one of them. But I guess I want to look at that in a different way, in a sense that, back to my original point about there are opportunities as well for organics as a department priority. I mentioned that it was about $50 billion in sales. There's a shortage in a lot of organic commodities today. So one of the reasons we have these trade questions going on the import side and whether or not those are certified organic products coming in is because we're importing more and more. We don't do a very good job of tracking that, and I'd like to see the department do a better job so we had an understanding of that. And also so we could calculate the missed opportunities for our American farmers. We shouldn't be buying commodities from outside the country if there are opportunities to grow more in this country. And I think having better information about that, better tracking, and better oversight of the certification that goes on. And some of those programs, as I mentioned before, like the National Organic Program that does certify the certifiers, does regular audits so we know what's going on, but also helping people make that transition. It's not always an easy thing to do, but many farmers are very satisfied when they're able to do that. So I'd like to hear again about your commitment to that. I know Mr. Bishop question about not filling some of these vacancies because there are 3 vacancies in that program, and that is justified as the cut in that program. I hope you'll tell me either that you'll guarantee to fill those vacancies or that you'll be willing to at least consider it at this point.
Well, let me take your latter. I'll absolutely consider it.
Okay.
I don't know that I can guarantee at this point, but I hear you loud and clear. We know the market's been growing. Ultimately, American capitalism, American entrepreneurship is pretty good at reading the customer demands and wishes, and they walk through the grocery stores, these producers do. Imports are coming in primarily because we really haven't been able to fill that demand that way. But it absolutely is USDA's responsibility to make sure that the cheaters, whether internationally or domestic, are held accountable to make sure that those certifications are authentic, or they validated, and they play by the rules. That's the customer deserves that, and that's the role that USDA plays in many areas, is to be the arbiter between the rules and regulations that we establish so that customer can have confidence in that. And we take that very seriously, and we will certainly double down on the international organic inspections and make sure that we're convinced that they're playing by the same rules that our producers have to play by.
And I appreciate that. That's particularly important to many of the hardworking farmers in my state who work very hard to meet those certification standards. I don't think I mentioned before, but I am a certified organic farmer and have been for many years. So I know those are strict standards, and I know they're difficult to meet. And I also want to say I agree. It is the USDA's responsibility to keep that brand pure and honest, but it's also the USDA responsibility to make sure our American farmers don't miss opportunities and that we're not importing more food into this country than we're producing. So when you talk about your priorities, I don't want you to have to overlook that there are opportunities here for our American farmers. Another one I want to just talk about quickly because we'll run out of time again. This is a small program, but in so many of these cuts at the department, I don't understand the justification. And just to mention one, value-added producer grants. They've been so beneficial to small farmers in our state. I'll give you an example of just a couple of things. Research for hop farms and helping hop farms to get established in our state. We have 95 breweries now because the craft brewing industry is growing, $400 million industry to our state. Very helpful grant. Artisan creameries, helping some of our dairy farmers get value-added products. Value-added potatoes, huge crop in our state. So this was said it was a duplicative program. How can you justify calling it a duplicative program? I don't see anywhere else farmers are going to go to get those same grants and opportunities.
I'm not directly familiar with the ones that you've mentioned, but I'll certainly look at those and get back to you on that. I think, again, rural development possibly can be a part in that of helping some of the good ideas in agricultural production go forward. So I'll have to specifically, if you'll submit those for the record, we'll get those the responses to you.
I will, and I'll also submit something about SARE, which is farmer-based research, also zeroed out in this budget because it said there were other opportunities. I know you're a strong proponent of research, and I've heard you talk about that today, but there aren't other opportunities that are farmer-directed. It's been very well used in my state and in other places around the country. It said in the justification that there would be increases to extension or REI to cover this. No, actually, it said this could be covered under extension or OREI. So I just know you'll be very excited to see my bill that doubles the spending at OREI because I think that's a great place to put some funds. And if we're going to zero out SARE, we're going to need that money.
Mr. Palazzo.